Hey everybody, it's Bobby, and today's a very special day for us because we've got our hands on a camera that, as of the day we're filming this video, has not been announced to the public, but it has been since you're watching this video now. This is our exclusive hands-on with the Leica Q2. Now, I want to thank Leica Singapore very much for allowing us to have a couple of hours with this camera. Now, having said that though, they have not sponsored this video in any way. These are our thoughts and our thoughts only. So let's take a look at the Leica Q2. Now, before we get into design and the new features and all that fun stuff, I do want to let you know that we have very limited information on this camera as of February 27th that we're filming this video. Now, as we get more information, we will update it in the description below this video, but just want to point that out for you, for anybody who's into specs and you're going, hey, wait a second, that wasn't quite right, or why didn't you say this? There's a reason for it. This camera literally just came into Singapore about a day ago, okay? Having said that, let's talk about the body for a second. Now, the Leica Q2 body looks just like the original Leica. I mean, why change something when it works so well, right? I mean, the Leica Q from 2015 became one of Leica's top-selling cameras of all time. And it looks relatively the same. There are some minor differences. We'll go over those right now. Now, first, you can see that the Leica Q2 name is on the hot shoe. That's that. Now, also on the back, instead of 5 buttons, we now have 3 buttons, okay? So they kind of clean up the back a little bit. And also the EVF area, this rubber portion here is also protruding a little bit more than the original. Now, I think that's also to help people that wear eyeglasses, so their glasses aren't hitting against the camera and it makes it a lot more comfortable for them to shoot with. Also, there is a new dial here. Now, this is a customizable dial, but by default, it's set to ISO. And you can customize it just like you could, let's say, on a Leica CL and so forth. There's a lot of ways to do that. Just press the middle button, hold it down, and then just change the dial to the settings you would like. Of course, you have your shutter speeds here, then you have your on and off switch, and you have your D-pad, and the display is touchscreen. So besides that, it looks just like a Leica Q. But now let's talk about what's inside. Now, I have to say this, it's very rare to see a camera company literally double the resolution from one model to the other, but Leica's done that with the Q. From 24 megapixels, they went up to 47 megapixels, literally almost double in terms of resolution. And 47 megapixels full frame in a camera this size, I think this has got to be the first camera we've seen on the market like this. Now, they're not using the Maestro 2 processor anymore. There's a new Maestro processor. I don't know the name of it yet. They just said that it's a new processor, so we're going to go along with them on that. It also has the ability to shoot 4K video, actually cinematic 4K video at 24 frames per second, which we have tested as well. So you've got full HD video, you've got HD video at 120 frames per second at 1080p, and then you go into 4K 24 frames, 4K 30 frames, and cinematic 4 frames at 24 frames. Okay, so now we're testing Cinema 4K at 24 frames per second on the Leica Q2. And we've got face detection on, so we'll move around a little bit. Let's see how it goes. Now, I have realized that there's a minimum focusing distance with this. We can't get too close to the camera. If I stay about here, should be pretty good, I'm guessing. Of course, they're not locked on here, but we're going to see how quick it locks on to me and how if I move around too fast, it loses me. This way. Walking pretty close to the camera. We should be about good. Back. Okay. All right. That's our test on the Cinema 4K 24 frames per second, face detection, image stabilization on the Leica Q2. That's pretty impressive. So those who are saying, wait a second, where's Leica with the video functionality? It's now in the Q2. Now, speaking of which, let's also talk about shutter speeds. They've also enhanced that as well. Now, the mechanical shutter is 1/2000, which is the same as it was before. But the electronic shutter, instead of 1/16,000ths of a second, it's now 1/40,000ths of a second. That allows you, in the electronic shutter mode, to shoot 20 frames per second. Now, in mechanical shutter, you can do 10 frames per second, and that is in full resolution, okay? Talking about some of the new features as well on this camera, it is dust and splash water resistant, so it's pretty much weather sealed, which is good if you want to go out into the terrains and you want to get a little rough and dirty with the Leica Q2. You can, no problems at all. What else do we have here that's quite new to this? A lot of people have been asking for this. Optical image stabilization. That is new to this. So, you've been wanting it, Leica heard you, it's now in this camera. Anyway, talking about the battery for a second here. On the original Leica Q, people were getting around 270 shots, thereabouts, right? And everybody was saying, hey, wait a second, what about the battery life? Can you make it any better? And Leica has. Now you get up to 350 shots. Plus, it's a new battery design. Look at this. It's just like the SL. No more battery door. I love that. Let's talk about autofocusing for a moment. Now, autofocusing, it worked relatively well in the original Leica Q. I mean, sometimes it had some problems hunting for it and people going, why was it a little bit better? I experienced that myself. I can tell you it's improved on this. It is much faster. I believe it's still contrast-based from my experience using it thus far, but that's not a bad thing because sometimes with the phase detection, you get that banding in your images at when you're pushing the the ISOs and so forth. So it could be a good thing, guys. So don't knock it till you try it, okay? Now also, you still have that ability to crop into photos. So you can do 35mm, 50mm, and with the Leica Q2, I don't remember it being in the Leica Q, but correct me if I'm wrong, but you can now crop in at 75mm with this. And that's kind of good because look, you got 47 megapixels to play with. That's a lot. I mean, even if you crop in at 35 or 50, you still, I think, got more resolution than you had from the original one. So there's a lot of play in this image, and that gives you a lot more focal length than just the standard 28 1.7 lens. So you're good to go. Speaking of the lens for a moment, it's still the same lens as the original Leica Q, 28mm Summilux with a 1.7 aperture with macro abilities to it. And that lens was phenomenal. It was great, and it shines here, especially at higher resolutions. It really, really does. We're looking at the pictures outside as we're shooting this right now, but let's go back to the computer, load the photos up in Lightroom, and let's take a closer look at the detail, the dynamic range, and how these images look at 47 megapixels. Okay, so we've just loaded some images up from the Q2 into Lightroom. Now, I did shoot a lot of images, but these are ones I thought would be great to kind of just show you in terms of the abilities of the camera, how it looks, low light, people, macro, scenic shots, and thus far. Now, please don't judge these images. These are just sample images, so I'm not going out for any photography awards here, just to give you an idea. First, let's look at a macro shot now. And show you the 47 megapixels at work. Now, all the images that I've shot are in RAW, just to give you an idea on that. Now, this is shot at ISO 100 at 28mm f4.0, 1/80th of a second. As you can see, this looks sharp. Let's zoom on in. Now, you gotta let the image load for a second here, because it is a large file. And this, look at the fibers on this stem right here. Now, beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Great color, great tonality, and this is a little bit flatter. I mean, it's shot in RAW, but out of the camera, it still looks pretty impressive. And the nice thing is that if we want to do a little bit of an edit on that, we can actually really enhance the detail on that. I'm gonna bump up the clarity, a little bit of, I'm gonna bring up the shadows to get some more detail. Look at the detail that pops up when you do that. And it looks really, really good, a little bit of contrast. So this is really impressive. This is with macro. Now let's go on to another image here. Let's take a look at a skyline. Now, Singapore's got a beautiful skyline. We're right across from Marina Bay Sands. We're near the Esplanade area. If you've ever been to Singapore, you know what I'm talking about. Right out of camera, looks beautiful. You see a lot of detail in the clouds here. The buildings look really detailed. Let's zoom in. Give a moment for the images to load. Now this will load faster or slower depending on your computer. And see, look at this. You can see the window structure, you can see all that. It looks really, really good. Here's the Fullerton Hotel and a lot of detail in that. And we're quite far away from this. I mean, this is a good distance away and we're able still to capture a lot of detail. Again, 47 megapixels. The image size, when you load it into your computer, is gonna be about 80 plus megabytes per image. So you got a lot of information to play with here. Now, in terms of the dynamic range, let's play a little bit with that. So, dropping the highlights down, push the shadows up and give it more than an HDR look. Everything looks great, still a lot of detail. Play with the exposure a little bit here. I think at around 1, a +1, you're pretty safe. Anything beyond that. Now, you wouldn't ever show an image like this, but just to kind of show you that where it starts bleeding over to the whites into the building, a little bit above 1. And of course, you can go down, you've got a lot of room for that. So bump up some clarity here. And if you want to, you know, boost up the saturation a little bit just to kind of give it that blue pop, a little bit of vibrance. Again, depending on your editing style, I'm just kind of going over some rough edits, but yeah, you're still seeing a lot of, and even this little boat, you can make out the words barely. I mean, and that's quite far away. So this is very, very impressive. Again, you want to crop in, you can still retain a lot of information on your images. Okay, now let's take a look at something shot under lower light situations. Now here's a picture of me underneath the bridge, and again, we have it was really bright outside. So we have the highlights behind me here that are really glaring, and of course, I'm really dark. But let's take a look at the detail that we're capturing on this. But look at this, it's still shooting at ISO 100 at 1/160th of a second. That's impressive. Now, a lot of cameras, especially in auto mode, would actually push the ISO up. Now, the Q2 is really keeping the ISO low as possible to retain as much detail in the image, and you can see that it's doing a tremendous job with this. But let's take a look at a little bit of how much range we have to play with this image. Boosting the exposure up a bit. Now, we are going to see the highlights kind of blowing out really across my shirt here. I think if I was to go any higher, you could, but you're really playing with fire a little bit. If I drop the highlights, though, look at that, bringing it right back down. Shadows, I want to bring out some details in the shirt or my face. If I push the clarity up, again, this is HDR. I don't like this kind of editing myself, but just to kind of give you what the image can look like. Look at that, once again. You can see all my pores. I'm showing YouTube all the pores and all the flaws in my face to showcase the image of the quality of this camera, and it's really impressive again. So you can really pull out a lot of detail in lower light situations. Okay, now speaking of lower light, let's push the ISO up. Let's see how well it does. Now this image, again, there was a pair of boxing gloves in a bar. It was virtually, the wall was almost dark. Now, we set this to auto on this point, and it was ISO 25,000, f1.7, 1/1000th of a second. Now, I could have played with the shutter on this one a little bit more, but just to kind of give you an idea of the grain and the noise. This is not a usable image. No one's ever going to shoot at 25,000, but we're just going to show it just to give you an idea of how the noise level is at 25,000. Again, if I went to a slower shutter speed, this would reduce the noise factor, but just showing it at its extremes. But let's use something that could be a much more usable image. Let's look at this. Now, this is at ISO 6400. Now, this is a range where a lot of people will use the Q2. Now, being a faster lens at 1.7, you don't need to push the ISO up as much. Let's take a look at it closer. Let it load up a little bit. Now, we're still retaining a lot of detail in the image. You are seeing a lot of noise, but that can be reduced in Lightroom. As a matter of fact, I'll just do that real quickly for you just to show you what you can do with that. Here we go. Okay, now sharpening whip down. Drop the sharpening down a little bit. That's at 0 sharpening, because Lightroom at times will like to boost the sharpening automatically on the images. You can bring that down, but still a lot of detail, right? But let's push up the noise reduction here. And you gotta find that right level here. I think around 23, 25 is good on that. Color by default is, you know, we could push up a little bit, keep the detail in. I mean, definitely very usable. I mean, from afar, it looks like there's no noise at all, but we really have to zoom in to really see it. So a lot of recovering on that image, a lot of ability to recover on that image, so no problems at all. And of course, if you want to bring the highlights down, look at that, look at the detail popping out on this. Look at that, pretty impressive, pretty impressive. Okay, and last but not least, we're going to show you the inside of a bar here. It's called Atlas Bar. It's in Singapore. If you haven't been there, you do got to check it out. It's a beautiful bar, Art Deco vibe to it. The building looks like something out of Gotham City. And we're able to retain a lot of detail. Now, this building has got a lot of detail in the ceiling and in the walls. Look at this, absolutely stunning. And we're able to see it. But one thing I wanted to highlight in this image is the really strong contrast between highlights and lowlights. And look at this. Some images you really would get a lot of fringing going on. You get a little bit of blue fringing, but nothing that can't be corrected in Lightroom. So it's definitely usable. But again, shows you the ability with this and able to kind of balance out the image, especially with a lot of the low tones here, the highlights and thus far, and the cropping factor. You've got a lot to play with. So again, I was focusing over, my focus point was right here on the lamp, and yeah, really happy with that image. So overall, I have to say that the Q2 47 megapixels is a welcomed addition to this. I don't think anyone was expecting Leica to throw 47 megapixels in the Q2. I'm glad they did it, and yeah, we'll be posting some more images throughout this video, some more edited images to kind of give you the final look of some of the shots I took, but overall, really impressed with the Leica Q2. So what's it like to use? It feels like a normal Leica Q, to be honest with you. I mean, the ergonomics are relatively the same. It's lightweight, it's compact. You still got that 28mm focal length, which gives you, it's great for scenic shots or street shots. But there's one thing I noticed when shooting with this, is that the shutter is actually quieter than the original Leica Q. Now, I don't have any sort of machine to monitor decibels, but when I tried the Leica Q previously, before I picked this up, and when I put it next to my ear, this sounds a little bit quieter, almost like the Leica M10P, but in a Q. So yeah, that's pretty good. So it's very stealth that way. And because the autofocus is so quick, you can just walk, snap your shot, and off you go. And you know you pretty much nailed it. So yeah, this is a great travel camera, or just day-to-day camera for those family shots, or just those shots you want to take whenever you're out and about. And you can even take the Leica Q2 on a swing. I'm a little bit too old for this. But anyway, to wrap things up, I gotta say the Q2 is really, I was really impressed with it. I mean, the images are sharp and crisp, the dynamic range, the tonality. I mean, 47 megapixel full frame sensor in a body this size with a Summilux 28mm 1.7 lens, optical image stabilization, ISO up to 50,000, touchscreen on the back of it, great EVF, 4K video. You know, this is one great way to start the year with Leica. And this is going to be, I mean, the original Leica Q sold out for months. I see this happening for a very long time with the Leica Q2. Anyway, those are our thoughts on the Leica Q2. Let me know your comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook. Until the next one, guys, take care.